I never thought a locked door would lead to a heart-stopping revelation about a millionaire doctor. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced, pounding like a hammer against my chest, as I stood there staring at the imposing door. It was heavy, dull gray, with an ominous padlock that held my entire world at bay. Something was hidden inside, a secret so dark it made the air feel thick with dread. Dr. Alex Hartley was the town's angel. Charming, brilliant, and rich. He healed the sick and brought hope to the broken. Everyone adored him. But what lay behind that locked door? I had spent months helping him organize charity events, all while he wore a perfect smile that could light up the dimmest room. But underneath that polished surface, I felt shadows lurking. The day I found myself before that door, my hands trembled. It was late afternoon, the wind howled like a wounded animal outside, and I felt an unexpected chill creep into my bones. He had left me there, only briefly, with a task to prepare for an upcoming gala. I had spent the day arranging flowers and folding napkins, but my mind was elsewhere. My thoughts raced back to the whispers I had heard, muffled voices blending with the laughter around me. "Did you hear about the doctor?" they said, eyes wide with suspicion. No one knows where he came from. With a deep breath, I reached for the doorknob. What a moment of weakness. My heart sank. Sweat dripped down my back. The door creaked as I twisted the handle, and it swung open, revealing a world cloaked in darkness. The air inside was stale, oppressive. My breath quickened, and the hairs on my arms stood straight. Feelings of fear washed over me, but I pushed through. Inside, the moonlight streaming through a small window illuminated shelves of bizarre artifacts. Strange machines hummed eerily. I could hardly process what I was seeing. A surgical table sat in the middle of the room, lined with instruments that glinted like sharp teeth. I stepped forward, my foot barely whispering against the cool concrete floor. My instincts yelled at me to turn and run, yet an invisible force urged me to stay, to uncover the truth. Then I saw it a glimmer, a piece of paper, crumpled on the ground. I knelt, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. As I opened it, my hands shook violently, panic settling over me like a thick fog. Names danced across the page, names of patients I recognized. Patients who had gone missing. A lump formed in my throat as darkness gathered around me, pressing in. I froze. How had I been so naive? He was not just a healer, he had connections to a network far deeper than I could have imagined. A cold sweat broke over my brow, and I stumbled back. Could it be? My mind scrambled for answers. Had I been working for a monster? Silence engulfed me, my breath unsteady. My resolve waned. Fear clawed at my insides. Just then, I heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate. The door behind me began to close. I had to make a choice. Confront him or escape with this shattered truth destined to linger quietly on my swirling conscience. My heart was in my throat as I thought, what would I even say? What was the depth of his secrets? And how far did they spread? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air in the room was thick with secrets, pressing against my lungs until I felt suffocated. I was torn, caught between the urge to flee and the desperate need to understand what I had stumbled upon. The footsteps grew louder, each thud resonating through my very bones. I backed towards the door, heart racing, but something compelled me to stay just a moment longer. Maybe it was that flicker of hope that somewhere beneath this dark facade, there was a reason, a misguided intention that I needed to uncover. Sarah? The voice was unmistakable. Dr. Hartley. Smooth, charismatic, and always tinged with warmth. But now, as it echoed in the dim light, it felt laced with something darker. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. There he stood, framed against the threshold like a specter from another life. "Alex," I whispered, the sound barely leaving my lips. The surprise on his face morphed into something unreadable. Was it anger? Fear? Panic? I studied him closely, searching for a crack in that polished exterior. "What are you doing here?" he asked, a hint of nervousness creeping into his tone. But it was too late for pleasantries. I swallowed hard, the paper still crumpled in my trembling hand. I found something. The admission felt heavy, laden with implications I couldn't yet process. The names, the whispers, the uncertainty choked me. I hated that I was even here, in front of him, vulnerable and trapped by the very allure that had once drawn me close. His gaze hardened slightly, an unsettling transition that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "You should leave while you can." "Leave? You can't just dismiss this." The words burst out of me, raw and electrified. "People are missing, Alex." "Who are you really?" For a moment, he appeared to struggle within himself, his facade flickering like an old neon sign struggling to stay lit. I watched as his jaw clenched, then relaxed, sending an unsteady breath rushing between us. "It's not what you think," he said finally, his voice low, almost pleading that I wanted to believe him, wanted to see that glimmer of a man I once admired, the benevolent savior I had known. But the room, with its sinister remnants, made it impossible. Before I could muster a reply, a loud crash shattered the silence outside, followed by the frantic barks of dogs. Alex's posture shifted, revealing a crack in his otherwise impenetrable demeanor. "Stay here," he ordered, and before I could protest, he slipped out of the room. Panic began to swirl within me again. Alone, I felt more exposed than ever. I pressed my back against the wall, listening intently for any hint of a struggle. My instincts screamed for me to run, to find help, to expose whatever twisted game he was playing. But the thought of leaving the truth behind felt worse than facing it head-on. Suddenly, the back door flew open, and I jumped as a figure tumbled inside. It was Clara, one of the charity volunteers, her eyes wild and frantic. "Sarah! Thank God I found you. What are you doing here?" My voice came out panicked, but her presence instantly sent needles of hope through my veins that I heard Alex's name mentioned in a conversation while I was out running an errand. It wasn't just whispers, there was talk of him being connected to something dangerous. "I thought you should know." My heart raced anew. "You have to help me. There's something he's hiding, and I think it's bigger than either of us realize. We need to." Before I could finish, the unmistakable sound of Alex's footsteps echoed back into the room, and I locked eyes with Clara. "We can't stay here," she said softly, urgency lacing her voice. But just then, Alex reappeared, his expression shifting like the unpredictable tide. "What's going on?" His gaze darted between us, suspicion narrowing the spaces around his eyes. A cold wave of fear surged through me, and in that moment, everything I believed about him felt poised on the brink of destruction. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. An uncertainty gripped my heart, a terrible realization dawning upon me. What if the monster I feared was more than just a metaphorical figure? What if he was truly capable of the darkness I had only just begun to imagine? "Sarah, listen to me," Alex urged, stepping closer, his voice low and intensely captivating. "You need to trust me. You don't know who you're dealing with." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy with unspoken threats. I knew then I was standing at the precipice of a revelation that could shatter everything. Before I could reply, Clara let out a sharp gasp, her eyes locking onto the door behind Alex. "We need to go. Now." But as I turned, the door creaked open ominously, and a figure emerged from the shadows, one I had never expected to see. A familiar face, twisted with malice and filled with veiled secrets. "Did you really think you could keep this hidden, Alex?" The newcomer sneered, stepping fully into the room, and in that moment, everything I once believed unraveled into chaos. The air crackled with tension as the new figure stepped into the room, and it felt like the temperature dropped several degrees. My heart pounded fiercely in my chest, the urgency of survival and the fear of the emerging truth swelling inside me. I recognized him instantly. David, a former colleague of Alex, someone I had always recalled as a charismatic yet deeply ambitious man. But now, standing before us, he was a specter draped in shadow, his lips curled into a wicked smile that suggested he relished this confrontation. "What do you want, David?" Alex asked, his tone controlled, yet small fissures of anger betrayed his calm facade. David's laughter echoed sarcastically through the narrow, dimly lit room. "Oh, Alex, you really think you can keep your little secrets buried forever? This girl," he pointed at me, "she is way too inquisitive for her own good." Clara stepped in front of me instinctively, her bravado a shield against the malignant energy radiating from David. "We don't need to hear whatever twisted narrative you've cooked up," she said, her voice unwavering even in the face of danger. "We're leaving." That I felt a rush of gratitude for her courage, but it was clouded by the reality that we were trapped in this room with their voracious conflict. David's eyes flared with amusement, and he took a step closer, his gaze flickering with mock pity. "Oh no, dear Clara. You don't get it, do you? This isn't just a conversation anymore. It's much bigger than either of you can fathom. That I don't care what you think you know," I shouted, surprising myself with the sudden surge of fire in my voice. "We won't be your pawns in whatever game you're playing." "This isn't a game," Alex interjected, frustration creeping into his voice, the force of his presence slowing the vortex of chaos around us. "You don't understand what you're up against. I'm trying to protect you." "Protect? Is that what you call this?" David interrupted, a mocking incredulity coating his words. "Running around with your pretty little charity, pretending to save the world while hiding the truth? There's a reason people go missing, and it starts with you." My stomach twisted painfully. The implication sent tremors coursing through my body. Every instinct screamed for me to flee, yet I was locked in place, unable to reconcile the man I thought I knew with the man standing before me. "Enough." Clara's voice rang out, breaking the charged atmosphere, her resolve momentarily rekindled. "We're done talking. If you're really as monstrous as you seem, well, find a way out and expose you." The way David's expression shifted, the facade dropping for just a moment, revealed something darker lurking beneath, something that sent ice racing down my spine. "Oh, sweet child, that's exactly the kind of spirit I thrive on. But just know, knowledge has a cost. You'll wish you'd never dug deeper." Before I could retort, a loud crash echoed from the back of the building, drawing all our attention. David's smirk faltered, a hint of concern flickering across his features as he quickly assessed the disruption. "Someone's here," Alex muttered, urgency igniting in his voice. "Who cares?" David shot back, though it was clear he couldn't ignore the looming threat. "You need to choose, Alex. Are you really willing to destroy everything you built to save them?" Something in that moment cracked in Alex's demeanor. The tension between him and David felt like two forces battling for dominance, threatening to combust. I tried to read his expression, searching for a flicker of the man I once knew, the one who vowed to protect those in need. "Sarah, Clara, go now," he ordered, but at that moment, the door swung wide, and the sound of hurried footsteps rushed inside. Another figure materialized in the doorway, one I couldn't quite comprehend. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the facia journalist, Sarah Kinsley, someone I had often admired for her fearless pursuit of truth. Her eyes were wide, fear and anger locked in a trembling dance between them. "I heard enough to make the years of digging worthwhile. The world needs to know what's happening here, Sarah." I breathed, a glimmer of hope igniting in my chest. If anyone could expose the darkness looming over us, it was her. But before I could fully process what was unfolding, David's previous amusement twisted into something dangerously furious. "No one is leaving this room unscathed," he bellowed, the room vibrating with his rage. "Get down." Clara yelled, throwing herself to the floor just as a loud bang echoed, the sound ricocheting off the walls and startling me into immediate action. I dropped alongside her, chaos erupting around us as furniture shattered and panic surged. In the pandemonium, I could barely register Alex's frantic movements as he pushed against David, desperation igniting in his eyes. But amidst the tumult, something heavy and metallic clattered to the ground, an object I barely glimpsed, twisted in shape, a pulse of danger radiating from it. My mind raced with confusion and dread. Then everything went black. An unfathomable silence etched itself in that moment, each heartbeat resonating like thunder in my ears, and I knew that the truth I so desperately sought had become a lethal game, the stakes much higher than I had ever imagined. Darkness suffocated me, the sensation wrapping around my body like a heavy shroud. My mind flickered in and out, disjointed thoughts colliding like storm clouds. Where was I? What had just happened? I struggled against the shroud, fighting for clarity, and slowly, the world began to re-emerge in fragmented whispers. Sarah. I'm right here. Clara's voice broke through the shadows, a flicker of warmth cutting through the cold tentacles of fear. I grasped for it, for her presence. A dull ache pulsed in my temples as I forced my eyes open, squinting against the dim light emerging from somewhere above me. Panic set in when I realized I was on the floor, the cool surface grounding me. I tried to sit up, but my limbs felt heavy, as if they were forged from lead. Stay down. Well, get you out, Clara's voice reassured me, though I could sense the jittery edge in her tone, a sound that mirrored the frantic heartbeat drumming in my ears. I focused on her silhouette hovering close by, a faint beacon in a darkened world. Did we get hit? I managed to rasp, my throat dry and cracked like fallen leaves. The taste of fear lingered on my tongue. No, Clara hurried to reassure me. It was just a blasted distraction, perhaps. It was David. She paused, her gaze shooting toward the chaotic remnants of the room. But Alex, he was right there, and now the world felt like it was tilting out from under me as panic swirled in my chest. What do you mean? Where is he? I tried to push myself upright, an urgency tugging at me. I could already guess the answer. David, that insidious vulture, had only just begun to prey. No. Lay back down. We have to regroup, Clara urged, but her eyes reflected an inkling of despair that captivated my attention. I took a deep breath, trying to tether myself amidst the turmoil in my heart. Clara, we can't just wait. We have to find him. He wouldn't let David take him without a fight. Wouldn't, but what if? Please, Clara. My desperation pierced her hesitation, and I could see the flicker of unwilling resolve in her eyes. With great difficulty, I managed to push myself to a sitting position. The remnants of our confrontation lay like a ghost of what transpired: a broken table leg, scattered papers, the metallic device that had dropped in the explosion, now ominously silent. A sense of dread washed over me as clarity seeped back in. Alex wasn't with us. If David has him, I began, but Clara cut me off, her expression morphing as she kicked into action. Then we need to move. Follow me, and stay quiet. As we crept through the remnants of the chaos, the weight of helplessness pressed down on me. The fact that Alex's safety was now uncertain tore at my insides. I couldn't allow it to happen. I wouldn't allow this man, this specter of ambition, to unearth secrets that could destroy everything we had fought for. Clara gestured toward a narrow passageway leading away from the room, where the flickering glow of distant lights beckoned like a lighthouse through fog. We tiptoed through splintered wood and shards of glass, a surreal contrast to the normally vibrant energy of the building. Each shadow felt alive with threats, a creeping sense of danger enveloped us, and I leaned into Clara, seeking some balance in her unwavering strength. Yet, my own fear clawed at me, relentless, transforming my courage into anxiety with every step. Finally, we slipped through the passage and into a narrow hallway. Just as I began to feel a fraction of hope, a shout echoed behind us, footsteps thundered, drawing nearer. My heart sank. David was hunting for us, and he was fueled by wrath. What do we do? I gasped, glancing around for an escape route, but the urgency pressed down like a weight, suffocating my thoughts. Clara looked to the doors on either side of the hallway. In there. She pointed toward a door marked maintenance. We rushed inside, the scent of dust and machinery enveloping us as we slammed the door shut. Breathless, inside, we crouched behind a row of metal shelves, peering through the small window set into the door. The footsteps stopped, a tense silence cloaking the corridor as we strained to listen. My ears rang with the eerie stillness until the sound of David's low, menacing laughter sliced through, sending chills racing down my spine. "You can run, but you can't hide. I'll find you. You're in this deeper than you realize." His voice drifted through the door, wrapping around me like a noose. In that moment, a new surge of urgency coursed through me. Need to protect Alex was suddenly intertwined with an overwhelming dread of what the truth could mean if it came to light. "Sarah, look!" Clara hissed, pointing. I shifted my gaze to where she had indicated, and my heart plummeted. There, resting precariously on the workbench, was a binder labeled "Confidential." Symbols and maps adorned the cover, but it was the name scrawled in bold letters beneath it that caught my breath: Harrison Medical Innovations. A million questions raced through my mind as confusion intermingled with a fresh, raw fear. Could David's machinations reach into the very core of the organization that Alex had thought was noble? Clara turned to me, her eyes wide with realization. "That's the company Alex works for. Whatever is in there is connected to him, and whatever he's hiding." That a rolling wave of dread settled in my stomach, panic rising as I glanced from Clara to the door, where David prowled just outside, his intentions twisted and dark. In a moment filled with defiance, I shook my head, squaring my shoulders. "We have to get that binder. We have to know what Alex is really involved in before it's too late." As the footsteps receded, the shock of David's revelation about Alex churned in my mind, a revelation that could crash the facade I had built around my faith in him. I was caught in the web of the night's dark, uncertain future, a fatal crossroads mounting on the horizon. But as Clara reached for the door handle, a chilling noise echoed beyond the door, a voice that penetrated the air like ice. "Let's make this interesting, shall we?" And with that, I realized the door was locked from the outside, and the true game had just begun. As the weight of our situation sunk in, a thick silence draped over us like a heavy fog. I pressed my back against the cold metal shelves, the harshness of the surface grounding me, reminding me that while the choices ahead were daunting, I was still here, still fighting. My breath came shallow. The room was too small, too confining, and the last words I had heard echoed cruelly in my mind: "Let's make this interesting, shall we?" David's voice was smooth and mocking, each syllable wrapping around the anxiety coiling within me. My skin prickled with fear. Whatever twisted game he was gearing up for, I felt in my bones that it was going to be ruthless. "Sarah, we can't stay here," Clara whispered urgently, her eyes flickering between me and the door. "We have to find another way out." I nodded, but as the rush of horror and dread washed over me once more, my mind churned with thoughts of Alex. What was he facing at this very moment? What did David want from him? The air inside the maintenance room grew oppressively thick as the uncertainty gnawed at the pit of my stomach. I remembered the warmth of Alex's touch, his laughter filling the empty spaces around us, and I couldn't shake the image of him caught in a storm of chaos and manipulation. Do you think he's okay?" I ventured, my voice trembling. Clara hesitated, her face softening. "I want to believe he is," she said, and for a brief moment, the sound of her voice held the promise of hope. But it slipped through my fingers like sand, and I came to terms with the grim possibility that it may be too late. "Let's check the window," I said, pushing myself toward the back of the room where the light filtering through dust-coated glass panes beckoned. Clara stayed close, her presence a steadying force against my rising tide of fear. We huddled near the window, craning our necks to peer out onto the alley below. An unexpected kindness emerged amidst the despair. A stray cat, ragged and thin, stared back at us from atop a dumpster. Even in chaos, it seemed to embody an unyielding spirit. I couldn't help but find solace in the creature's resilience. It reminded me that life, even in the darkest of moments, could claw its way back to the surface. Suddenly, the noise outside changed, the sound of scuffling footsteps accompanied by muffled voices snaking their way closer. My heart clenched as I registered their urgency, fear and purpose intertwined as voices rose in anxiety. "Alex! Where are you? Whispered a familiar, desperate voice that rang like a bell in the stillness of the night. My heart raced. Jason, Alex's colleague and sometimes confidant, could be close. If only we could reach him, together we'd stand a better chance against David's twisted ambitions. Do you hear that? I whispered to Clara, my heart skipping a beat as I realized who was searching for Alex. It's Jason. He's here. Clara's expression brightened with the slightest flicker of hope. Can we get to him? She asked sharply, her eyes sparkling with the tenacity I longed to match. That I don't know, I faltered, glancing back at the door, where David prowled, still on the hunt for Yus. If he got word of Jason, it could spell disaster. We needed a plan. Clenching my jaw, I searched the makeshift room for anything we could use. My gaze landed on a heavy metal toolbox resting against the wall. If we can make enough noise to distract them, maybe we can slip out when they aren't looking, I suggested, resolutely pushing the toolbox toward the door. Clara nodded in agreement, and together, we nudged the toolbox forward until it toppled over with a loud clatter, the sound reverberating in the confined space. I held my breath, waiting for the reaction, praying that the chaos outside would pull the attention away from us. Get him. He can't get away. I heard David's voice bark, panic lacing the words. The sound of footsteps scampering and voices heightening drove life into my veins. Now! I urged, wrenching the door handle in a flurry of urgency, ignoring the locked mechanism that bound us so tightly. We were in a race against time, a desperate gamble for freedom. As the noise intensified outside, Clara and I slipped toward the window, pushing it open with apprehensive hands. The rusted hinges groaned in protest but gave way, and just as we prepared to climb out into the alley below, my heartbeat quickened. Just beyond the barricade of noise, I heard Jason's voice again, loud and clear. Alex. Where are you, man? Answer me. In that moment, the weight of heartbreak crashed over me like a wave. I felt torn between the instinct to answer, to call out, but the reality of our situation held me hostage. If David found out Jason was close, everything we hoped for could crumble. As Clara pulled herself through the window, I took one last look behind me at the remnants of the room. So many secrets, so many twisted truths waiting to be uncovered. If only I could unravel what had ensnared Alex without dragging Jason into this nightmare. As I climbed through, the last thought lingering painfully in my mind was the vivid reality that if anything happened to Alex, I would never forgive myself. Somehow, I had to save him before the revelation about Harrison Medical Innovations shattered everything we held dear. But just as I landed softly on the cold ground, a chilling realization swept through. Meth Alley was empty. Jason was gone, and in that same heartbeat, I wondered if this was the calm before the storm. The sound of footsteps returning made my blood run cold. David had returned. A flicker of surrender swept over me as a fragile truth hit like ice. Finding Alex could very well lead to losing Clara and Jason, and nothing felt more terrifying than that. The world ahead seemed insurmountable, yet victory felt woven into the fabric of desperation. What are we going to do? Clara whispered, and the question hung heavy in the air, each word a prayer that warranted a response. Run, I whispered back, my voice resolute. We have to run and we can't look back. But just as we turned to flee, the chilling ring of a phone echoed through the night, signaling an incoming message. David's unexpected move was just beginning, and it would morph everything we thought we knew. The moment my heart ceased racing and a chilling sense of calm washed over me, I knew this was no simple game for David. It was a calculated assault on every thread of trust we had ever woven. With Clara beside me, our next steps felt like wading through an emotional fog, a treacherous terrain of uncertainty threatening to drown us. As we slipped into the night, shadows enveloped us like secrets waiting to be discovered. My thoughts were a tangled web of Alex's vulnerable state, Jason's desperate search, and the harrowing implications of David's manipulations. But the echoing phone call was the decisive factor in this high-stakes reality. I had barely made it down the alley when I turned to Clara, her face illuminated only by the flickering light seeping from the street lamps above. We have to find a way to reach Jason. He's our best shot at finding Alex, I insisted, trying to breathe life into my words. She looked back at the entrance of the building, a flicker of fear crossing her features. We can't call out to him. What if David hears us? Then we need to get to a safer spot, I replied, my voice rushing with urgency. We needed answers, and the icy weight of the empty alley filled with the dread of uncertainty was bearing down on us. Just then, we spotted a nearby din-era flickering neon sign casting a dim glow, its windows lined with rain-speckled droplets. We hurried toward it, seeking refuge within its warmth, but as we swung the door open, the bell overhead jingled with a sound that felt utterly misplaced in our tense reality. The diner was nearly empty except for a few scattered patrons, their conversations hushed and colored by the flickering warmth of yellow light. But as I glanced toward the counter, a figure caught my eye. It was an older woman, her presence both commanding and gentle as she wiped down the bar with practiced precision. "Hey, sweetheart," she called, her voice like a soothing balm on my ragged nerves, "you two look like you've been through the ringer. Come sit." Surprised by her welcoming nature, Clara and I hesitated before we very cautiously approached her. I could hear the faintest spark of kindness in her words, an unexpected moment of solace in a world of chaos. As we slid onto the bar stools, she handed us water and eyed us with concern. "What's the matter? You seem awfully troubled," she asked, her gaze softening almost instinctively. My heart leaped, a moment of authentic human connection in this maelstrom of fear. "We're looking for someone," I said, my voice nearly breaking. "A friend. He's in trouble." The woman's brow furrowed thoughtfully, and in that moment, I felt as though she could see right through the veneer of worry that enveloped me. "Do you have a name?" she asked gently, her voice pulling me into the depths of vulnerability. "Alex," I whispered, the sound barely escaping my lips, and with that name came a tidal wave of memories, laughter, and love. But just as quickly, dread clung like a shadow. He could be in danger. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed, seizing both of our attentions. She glanced at the screen, a deep frown creasing her brow as she read a message that turned her pale. "It's Jason, he's found something," she said breathlessly, her eyes widening in shock. "He wants me to meet him at Harrison Medical Innovations. He thinks it's the key to helping Alex." My heart dropped at the mention of that labyrinthine facility, a place that held too many secrets wrapped in sterile walls and ambitious dreams. "But Clara, Sarah, it could be our only shot," she insisted, urgency rising in her voice. Before I could respond, the older woman leaned across the counter, locking eyes with Clara. "You need to be careful, dear," she warned, her voice now rich with hesitations and shadows of her own. "Harrison Medical isn't just another building. There are forces at play there that can bury you if you aren't careful. Aren't you going to help us?" Clara pushed, her voice tinged with desperation. The woman's eyes softened once more, apology mingling with concern. "I can't. But you have to trust yourself, and that means knowing when to step back." As we exchanged glances, I realized that the fleeting comfort of kindness was quickly overshadowed by the looming reality ahead. "We can't turn back now," I said quietly, my resolve consolidating. "We have to face this." "All right," Clara nodded, determination igniting in her eyes. "We set a plan. If we can gather the evidence we need against David, maybe we can reach Alex and protect ourselves in the process." "Then we should go," I replied, feeling the weight of decision sitting heavily upon my chest, but just as we stood to leave, a commotion erupted at the diner entrance. The bell rang out in alarm, reverberating in the frightened atmosphere. I turned, heart racing again, and saw David stepping through the door with an air of authority that sent chills coursing through me. He scanned the room, eyes seeking, until they locked onto Clara. Dread washed over me, the realization palpable that our small moment of kindness was about to be engulfed in turmoil. "Clara," I whispered, panic clawing at my throat. "We need to get out now." A flicker of fear passed through her eyes as David's knowing smile twisted into something darker. The diner felt like it was closing in, the stakes escalating impossibly high as he approached slowly. "Ah, there you are," he drawled, voice honeyed and insidious. "I've been looking for you both." In that instant, I recognized the surge of vulnerability and courage that enveloped me. Our escape was slipping away, but my belief in fighting back grew with unyielding strength. As Clara and I turned to flee, I knew the path ahead was filled with treachery and love entangled in a fray, but now, nothing could keep me from Alex. Yet as our escape began, I could only wonder what awaited us beyond the open door and whether the truth about Harrison Medical would expose more than we ever anticipated. The chill of the night air wrapped around us as Clara and I bolted from the diner, our minds racing with fear and a desperate will to protect Alex. The soft glow from the neon sign flickered behind us, now a stark reminder of fleeting moments of comfort before our reality turned darker. We sprinted down the alley, each step thrumming with the urgency of unraveling threads that tangled deeper the more we pulled at them. Where now? Clara gasped, breathless from the sudden sprint, her earlier resolve wavering under the weight of our relentless pursuit. I could see her fighting against the panic, but I wasn't sure where we were running to. Jason's message had offered a sliver of hope: Harrison Medical Innovations. Yet the thought of stepping into that sterile environment twisted into knots of anxiety in my stomach. We need to reach Jason. He's waiting for us, I urged, the words tinged with determination. He can guide us through, Clara nodded, agreeing silently as we dodged into another street, navigating our way through city shadows. But with every turn, a sense of foreboding settled deeper within me, an instinct that warned us of impending danger. As we approached the large glass facade of Harrison Medical, the weight of the building loomed ahead, stark and intimidating. The well-lit structure surrounded by ominous silence sent a ripple of dread through me. We shared a wordless glance, sunlight flickering through the clouds like hope against a storm. "Do you think Jason is already inside?" Clara whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the overwhelming quiet. "Let's find out," I replied, lifting my chin, willing courage to break through the fear that held me captive. We pushed through the automatic doors, and the sterile scent of hospital-grade disinfectant hit us with a force that was almost suffocating. The lobby was eerily empty, the polished floors reflecting our anxious footsteps as we approached the reception desk. No one was there, but a shiver ran down my spine as I recalled the woman's warning about the forces inside these walls. I almost wished we had taken more time to gather our thoughts in the diner, to deal with the comfort she had offered instead of racing headlong into danger. "Jason?" I whispered, conscious of echoes in the cavernous space. Just as I opened my mouth to call again, the sudden blare of a siren rang out, piercing the silence. Clara and I froze, eyes widening in unison. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. Yeah, the fear gripped my throat, the urgency escalating. "He must be in trouble," I suggested, but the disquiet crawled under my skin. What if Jason was already caught in whatever scheming David had set in motion? I stepped forward, my heart pounding with urgency and trepidation as I reached for my phone, ready to call Jason. But just as I touched the screen, a figure stepped into view from the hallway to our left, and the breath left my lungs. "Megan." Clara gasped, seeing the familiar face of Jason's sister, her expression a confusing mixture of relief and distress. "Sarah, Clara. Thank God you're here," Megan exclaimed, running toward us, her urgency palpable. "I was looking for you. Jason, he's in the lab, but you need to hurry. David's men are on the way." "What?" I barely managed to whisper as panic threatened to take over. "He went in without us, there wasn't time to wait. He thought he could gather evidence on what they're doing. You have to come quickly." With renewed urgency, we followed Megan down the hallway, adrenaline pumping through our veins as the sirens continued to echo ominously in the background. Clara and I shared a look, a concoction of hope and fear swirling together, while I felt the stakes rising with each step. As we entered a dimly lit room at the end of the corridor, my heart clenched at the sight before us. Jason was hunched over a desk piled high with documents and diagrams, his face illuminated by the glow of a computer screen. The tension in the air sent a shiver through me, a sense of something critical poised to break. "Jason!" Clara called, urgency lacing her voice as we stepped inside. He looked up, eyes wide with disbelief, but there was a flicker of something dark behind his gaze. "You shouldn't have come," he said breathlessly, and my chest tightened at the ominous tone. David is onto us. Before I could respond, the door slammed shut behind us, the sound echoing like a thunderclap that drove home the gravity of our situation. In that moment, a wave of vulnerability crashed over me. We were ensnared in a web of danger, despite our hopes, as I heard footsteps approaching. "Jason, what did you find?" I pressed urgently, adrenaline surging, while the shadow of impending doom flickered closer. His fingers trembled, grasping a file filled with photographs and documents. "This proves everything," he whispered, glancing toward the door. "But if we don't get out now, we'll never see Alex again." My heart raced as the footsteps grew louder, the echoes amplifying our impending fate. I could feel the walls closing in around us, the weight of our choices heavy on my mind. "We have to find a way." I was cut off as the doorknob rattled violently, and terror coursed through me. Just as I grasped Jason's arm, he turned, his expression transformed into one of urgency mingling with something I couldn't quite place. "Sarah, listen carefully." Before he could finish, the door burst open, and in an instant, everything changed. A figure filled the threshold, silhouetted against the unsettling brightness that emerged from the corridor. It wasn't David nor his men, rather, it was a man I recognized, someone whose presence hit me like a veiled punch. "Surprise," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like you've all found yourselves in quite a bind." My heart sank. In this moment, all the carefully spun threads of our lives tumbled into discord, leaving us dangling on the precipice of an unfathomable truth intertwined with a sinister revelation I had never seen coming. How could this be happening? The man leaned against the doorframe, the fluorescent lights casting an almost sickly glow on his sharp features. A chill crept up my spine as recognition settled in a twisted mix of disbelief and dread. Mark Bennett, the notorious billionaire known for his charm and ruthless business acumen, now stood before us as an ominous harbinger of our confusion. "What are you doing here?" Jason spat, his voice taut with anger tinged by fear. "Oh, come now, Jason," Mark replied, stepping further into the room with an air of nonchalance that grated against my frayed nerves. "I can't let you dig too deep, can I? Let's just say I have a vested interest in keeping my little projects under wraps." His gaze scanned our faces, like a predator sizing up its prey. "Your projects?" Clara echoed, incredulity pooling in her voice. "You mean what you're doing to Alex?" The raw desperation in her tone struck at my heart. Mark raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "Ah yes, the little boy. You see, dear Clara, real progress requires sacrifices. It's all for the greater good." He shrugged, feigning indifference. "Once I get what I need from this lab, hell be fine." "Wasn't that the deal?" "No," I blurted, stepping forward, fury igniting within me. "You're using him. He's not a pawn in your sick game." He stepped closer, eyes narrowing, and for a split second, I regretted my outburst. "Careful, Sarah," he warned, a chilling smile creeping across his face. "Your passion is admirable but ultimately futile. I suggest you think about what you want because you'll need to choose." "Choose?" Jason echoed incredulously, his eyes flashing. "What are you talking about?" Mark's gaze flickered toward the door, the barometer of our impending doom. "You have two options. One leads to freedom, while the other." He paused, letting the weight of his words linger in the air. "Well, you'll find that the consequences of ignorance can be fatal." Tension coiled in the air, and for a moment, we stood paralyzed by his presence. My heart raced, and bile rose in my throat as I thought of Alex, the fragile thread of hope tethering our desperate hearts together. "We're not leaving without him," I said firmly, my voice trembling as I searched Jason's eyes for a glimmer of resolve. "Yes, that's your choice then," Mark replied, tone dripping with condescension. "Face consequences, or let me take care of the little boy." "Time's running out." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps once again echoed through the corridor, a reminder of the dangerous time we were racing against. Jason's jaw clenched, and desperation simmered behind his usually calm demeanor. "What do you want, Mark?" A look of feigned contemplation crossed Mark's face. "What I want is simply proposition. Join me, help me finalize my research, and I will ensure Alex's safety. Or continue down this path and risk losing everything. The room fell silent, the weight of his words clawing at the edges of my sanity. You think we'd ever align with you? Clara challenged, fists clenched at her side as defiance sparked in her eyes. Oh, I think you'll find that desperation can make unlikely bedfellows. Just look at yourselves. His voice dripped with mockery as he once again insinuated our choices were limited. In that moment, a flicker of hope burst through the thick veil of despair. If only we could manage to outsmart him. Let us see these documents, I said, my voice steadying as I summoned newfound courage. You need us to sign off on your research into the ethical implications of your work, or else it will be worthless. Mark paused, surprise flickering across his cool facade, but it was only for a moment. Very clever, he said slowly, a smirk creeping back across his features. But you're forgetting the timeline. Just then, the distant vibration of a phone echoed, drawing our attention. Jason was still clutching his, and as he turned the screen toward me, there it was, a message from Alex. I felt the air thrum with urgency, and for a brief moment, all the noise in the room faded away, leaving only my pounding heart. They're coming for you, Jason read, the subtle tremor in his voice underscoring the gravity of the situation. What does it mean? Clara asked, fear gripping her voice as her breath quickened. David, Jason whispered, barely audible over the sudden rush of chaotic thoughts racing through my mind. He must have sent someone to track us down. Time's up, Mark said casually, pushing away from the door. You know what you have to do. I'll give you exactly 5 minutes to make your decision before I take matters into my own hands. You can save yourselves or you can save your precious little boy. He turned and walked towards the door, leaving us hanging at the edge of a precipice, faced with the most harrowing choice we could imagine. The footsteps grew louder, echoing ominously in the distance. Sarah, Jason said urgently, pulling me closer, whatever we do, we have to get Alex out. We can't let him become another statistic in Mark's game. We need to outmaneuver him, find a way to turn this around. What if saving Alex means putting ourselves in harm's way? Clara asked, her voice trembling with worry. As uncertainty enveloped us, Mark paused at the door, glancing back with a sardonic smile. Make your choice, my dear friends. The clock is ticking, and the stakes are higher than you can imagine. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The heavy silence that followed was suffocating, the weight of our decisions palpable. My heart thundered in my chest as time slipped from our grasp, and I realized one immutable truth: every door we opened could just as easily lead us to the precipice of despair. Alex's future hung in the balance, and as we stood poised on the brink of uncertainty, I knew one undeniable thing: our choices would define the path ahead. But as Jason gripped my hand, a fierce determination blazed within me. No matter what Mark planned and no matter how dark the road ahead loomed, I was willing to fight for Alex's life, even if it meant plunging into the very depths of danger. And as we huddled closer, shadows danced around us, the promise of a storm brewing not just outside but within each of our hearts. There was no turning back now. We had to face the unexpected head-on, the path ahead veering into realms we couldn't yet conceive. What had I unlocked with that door, and how far would I have to go to keep my promise to a little boy caught in a web of darkness? In a world woven with betrayal and uncertainty, all that remained was the hope that a light would find its way through the cracks of our fragile reality. As the echoes of Mark's footsteps faded, an oppressive silence settled over us like a heavy blanket, and I could feel the weight of the decision crashing down upon us. The walls of the cramped room seemed to close in, suffocating the small glimmers of hope that dared to flicker in opposition to the darkness looming outside. Okay, we need to think, Jason said, his voice strained. We have 5 minutes, and we can't afford to waste a second. What options do we really have? Clara's hands trembled, running nervously through her hair. If we choose to work with him, she hesitated, fear swallowing her words. What happens to Alex? We would be aiding a monster, no better than he is. I could see the weight of that looming choice pressing down on her, much like it was for all of us. And if we don't? What are our chances of getting to him before he does? I whispered, my thoughts racing like a wildfire consuming every ounce of clarity I had left. Wait, what if Jason began, his eyes lighting up with a thought. What if we create a distraction? Something to draw attention away while one of us goes to find Alex. It's risky, Clara replied, biting her lip, worry lining her brow. What if Mark sends more people after us? What if they catch the one who goes? But deep down, I could feel the tangled threads of desperation weaving through our hearts, binding us together in an undeniable bond. There was a flicker of conviction that ignited in my chest. If we don't try, we're already losing, I asserted, my voice trembling with conviction. We owe it to Alex to stand a chance. Before Jason could respond, urgency crackled through the air again as another wave of footsteps approached, closer this time. My heart thundered in my ears as I caught a glimpse of shadows forming through the frosted glass of the door. Time wasn't merely running out, it was evaporating. Sarah, please. You're not thinking straight, Jason urged, his grip tightening on my arm. You can't just run in there without a plan, but the thought of Alex trapped, innocent and scared, propelled me forward against my hesitation. I can't know, I won't let Mark keep him as leverage. We can make something work. Just trust me, Jason sighed, threading fingers through his unkempt hair, clearly torn between fear for me and the urgency of the situation. Clara's eyes shifted between the two of us, caught in the turbulent currents of our emotions. Fine, Jason finally relented, his eyes narrowing with determination. But we have to act fast. If we're going in, we do it together. No one goes alone. I nodded, steeling my resolve, reminding myself of the light in Alex's eyes, the affection that radiated from his laughter. With that thought fueling me, I started to outline our half-baked plan, ready to face the brewing storm together. The footsteps outside crescendoed, rattling the door as it swung open with a jarring creak. Standing there was not Mark, but a stranger clad in dark clothing, face obscured by a hood. Instinctively, I placed myself between Jason and Clara, sensing danger wash over us like a tide. Where's the kid? The stranger demanded, voice low and threatening. Clara gasped, clenching her fists. Who are you? What do you want? The doctor said to retrieve him. Hand him over, and no one gets hurt, the stranger replied, his eyes narrowing with impatience. The sheer audacity of their demand ignited a fierce pulse of anger within me. You're not taking anyone. Not without a fight. In an instant, chaos erupted. Clara vaulted toward the intruder, fists raised, while Jason attempted to wrestle him back. The struggle sent me stumbling out of the way, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Just as I thought we could overpower him, the intruder pulled out a small device that emitted a blinding flash of light. I squeezed my eyes shut against the searing brightness. Distant voices drowned my feeble thoughts. A warning, a cry, and then darkness enveloped me. When the light finally dimmed, I opened my eyes to confusion. I was sprawled on the floor, disoriented and breathing heavily. Jason and Clara were gone, the room lay empty, the only sound the distant hum of fluorescent bulbs above. Anger surged through me. No! Jason! Clara! My voice echoed like a ghost haunting the empty space. Fear slithered in, coiling around my heart as the reality of their absence sank in like a stone in water. And then, amid the thick silence, a faint sound broke through. A small, muffled whimper reached my ears. I strained to listen, following the sound, my heart hammering. Could it be Alex? Hope ignited in my chest, even as fear churned in my stomach. I stumbled to my feet, scanning the room for any sign of life. The whimper came again, echoing down the hallway that Mark had emerged from earlier. Without a second thought, I raced toward the sound, every instinct urging me forward. My heart pounded louder with each step, and I could almost feel the walls closing in around me, once more trapped between fear and hope, with only the faintest spark guiding me deeper into the unknown. As I turned the corner, I caught sight of a figure at the end of the hallway, the dim light slicing through the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. Alex? The name escaped my lips almost involuntarily. His head snapped up, eyes wide and brimming with desperation. But just as our gazes locked, I felt a prickling sensation crawl up my spine, a premonition that something far more sinister was about to unfold. "Help!" Alex cried, voice thick with fear. "They're coming." And in that moment, I realized we weren't just racing against time, we were racing against a darkness we hadn't fully anticipated, one that would test our resolve, our courage, and everything we held dear. And as I rushed forward, determined to save him, a cold voice echoed in my mind, "In the end, even heroes can fall into despair." The fear coursed through my veins as I sprinted toward Alex, his terrified eyes a mirror of the chaos swirling in my mind. I wanted nothing more than to sweep him up in my arms, to shield him from whatever darkness loomed just beyond the shadows. "Stay right there, Alex. I'm coming," I yelled, pushing my feet faster. As I neared him, the hallway stretched into a void, the space amplifying everything, my racing heart, Alex's quickened breaths, the growing footsteps echoing down the corridor behind me. Time fractured, pulling me in two directions toward the hope lighting up Alex's face and the dread crashing behind me like a wave, and then I saw him dive just a few steps from where Alex crouched on the floor. His malevolence was palpable, wrapping the air around us like a thick fog. "You shouldn't have come here, Sarah," he sneered, his voice dark and tainted with contempt. "I warned you about digging too deep." My heart thudded, my instincts sparked alive as I stepped between Alex and David, ready to protect him at any cost. "Get away from him!" I shouted, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "You won't lay a hand on him, foolish girl," he said with an infuriating calmness. "You can't protect anyone now. Perhaps you've blacked out for a moment, but I assure you the game has changed." Panic gripped me as I glanced back at Alex, the fear in his eyes cutting me like glass. Again I felt the tremors of desperate resolve knotting my insides. He was defenseless, and I couldn't let him be victimized by David's insidious intentions, but just as I readied myself to act, the door behind David slammed open, and to my utter shock, it was Mark. "David! Are you?" he started, only to glance at the scene unfolding before him, confusion knitting his brow. In that brief moment of distraction, an unyielding instinct urged me forward. I lunged toward Alex, shouting, "Run!" My heart raced, I needed to reach him and pull him to safety. But suddenly, the room erupted with activity, shouts from all sides, the chaos intertwining like a twisted binary. It became a blur, footsteps collided, voices mingled, confusion settled. I sprinted toward Alex, but David's hand shot out like a serpent, grabbing my wrist. The grip was impossibly strong, and rage filled my entire being. "Let her go!" Alex screamed, eyes wide with fear. He surged forward, desperation pushing him beyond reason, and in that very moment everything shifted, summoning a force I didn't realize I possessed. I pulled away from David's grasp just as Alex darted towards me. I reached him, and with adrenaline surging like a tempest inside me, I fiercely yanked him toward the end of the hallway. But it wasn't David who was about to corner us, it was Mark who was now advancing rapidly at our backs. "You're not getting away from this. You don't know what you're meddling with." We dashed into the first room we could find, a dark space that smelled of dust and decay. The moment I slammed the door shut, I quickly scanned the room, praying for an exit. But my heart sank when silence enveloped us, the frantic condition outside now muted by the oppressive darkness. "Are we safe here?" Alex breathed, increasing my worry just as much as the shock flickered in his already wide eyes. His expression was harrowed, but in that moment, there was a light glimmering behind the fear, a spark of trust, the unyielding bond we shared, and for a fleeting second, my heart soared. Could we still find a way out? "Not for long," I whispered, the sound barely escaping my lips as desperation clawed at my throat. "We need a way out." A scuffle erupted behind the door, causing our breath to hitch. The men were coming for us. "We have to do something," I hissed, another wave of dread washing over me. Just as I began to panic, my eyes landed on a broken window high above, framed by dust and shattered glass, its width providing a glimmer of a possible escape. My heart raced with hope. "Alex, we can climb through that window." I gestured, ushering him toward it. It's our only chance. His determination rekindled, energy surged to his limbs and he nodded. Let's do this. Together, we stumbled over fallen debris, breath hitching in our throats as adrenaline pumped lifeblood through our bones. With shaky hands, I scrambled to get a grip on the windowsill, pulling myself upward, finding footing on the ledge. Alex followed close behind, his small frame a perfect fit against the jagged opening. In a moment of sheer clarity, we climbed through, thrusting ourselves out into the cool night air. We emerged onto the ledge outside, the wind whipping around us, sending shivers coursing through my spine. The fall was steep, but freedom greedily beckoned. What now? Alex hissed, glancing back. Fear flickered in his eyes, but so, too, did trust. I had to guard it with every ounce of my being. Down, I urged, glancing out into the precarious night, assessing our harrowing escape. Can you jump? I think so, he breathed, nodding, and I felt a surge of pride mingled with fear for what came next. On 3, my heart thundered, pounding in sync with the urgent voices inside the building behind us. 1, 2, 3. We leapt, the world stretching into a moment of weightlessness before gravity reasserted itself. We hit the ground, pain racked my body, but I scrambled up just as the shouts erupted from the window behind us. Run! I yelled, and without another glance back, we took off. The adrenaline surged through me, propelling us forward as we dashed into the black night. Heart racing, I focused fiercely on the path ahead, every step taking us further from the darkness that had nearly engulfed us, but just when hope shone brightly ahead, the shadows loomed large once more. A screeching sound echoed as a car appeared, its headlights flooding the night with blinding light, the engine growling like a beast. I instinctively pulled Alex closer, breathless terror clouding every thought. In another moment of desperation, I had to act. I felt the weight of something powerful within, meth echoes of every choice, every sacrifice guiding me forward. We had run, but we were still fleeing. As the car rolled closer, I raised my hand, determined to flag it down. But it wasn't just any car, it was Jason, emerging from the chaos, face drawn but radiating determination. Relief washed over me, drowning out the dread that lingered like a ghost. Get in. Now! He shouted, the rush of urgency spurring us on. We leapt into the back seat, breathless, hearts pounding, and Jason slammed his foot on the accelerator, tearing away from the looming danger behind us. The echoes of a reality what escaped vibrated against my heart, each unresolved tension still coiling in the back of my mind, but at that moment, hope ignited fiercely, replacing the fear that had washed over me. We did it, Alex whispered, and I turned to find him staring wide-eyed out the window, the storm clouds of chaos receding behind us like a haunting nightmare. We really did it. Around us, the world blurred, a melding of fear and relief, and in that moment, I finally saw what I had spent so long searching for. Each thread of our journey had woven together, pulling the strands of courage, unity, and purpose throughout the dark fabric that had sought to consume us, but even as we sped away, the unyielding truths echoed in my heart: this battle wasn't over. It had only just begun, and as we drove into the night, I knew we had only scratched the surface of darkness hiding in places we had yet to uncover. Are you both okay? Jason's voice broke through the haze of exhilaration and dread, grounding me against the uncertainty looming ahead. I turned to Alex, the small boy who had woven himself into my heart through laughter and innocence. We're okay, I murmured, linking our hands together. But we have so much more to face, and in that moment, as our eyes connected, I felt a rush of fierce warmth enveloping us, a willingness to one another, a promise that we would face whatever came, no matter the cost. With courage ignited within our hearts and the truth entwined, we would rise together against the darkness waiting to engulf us. Each heartbeat echoed like a drumbeat, reminding us that in confronting the unthinkable, we carried the weight of each other's Levisa bond, forged in a reality that would not let us escape its grasp. And as we drove into the night, one final thought anchored me: love is the strongest weapon against the darkness. We were warriors in our own right, unwilling to fall silent in a world of secrets and shadows. We would fight our way to the light, no matter where that journey led us. The road ahead would be riddled with challenges, yet even the darkest night would give way to the dawn. For in that moment, I knew, above all else, we'd face anything together.